All right. So what I'm going to do is the concepts that Mark just introduced, right? We are going to build upon the same concepts, and I'm going to demo the same things on OpenShift. So Knative running on OpenShift is what I'm doing today. Questions before we get started. What are those three main components that of Knative that Mark just explained? Anyone? Build, serving, events. Remember that order because I'm going to present in the same order. Okay, let's do that. The other thing that I talked about is I'm presenting Knative on OpenShift. I am guessing that people know what OpenShift is, but for those who don't know, OpenShift is Kubernetes. It is enterprise-ready Kubernetes, fortified Kubernetes. It follows Kubernetes cycles. Generally, there is a 2 to 3 month lag after every Kubernetes release. Red Hat releases OpenShift because we make it enterprise-ready and then we support it, right? There are some concepts in OpenShift that were added right from the release 3.0, which corresponds to Kubernetes 1.0. Things like builds that we are hearing in Kubernetes have been there in OpenShift. OpenShift provides a mechanism to build your own code. For example, you can provide the source code, OpenShift converts that into a container, and that then automatically deploys it and runs it, right? What I'm going to do in this demo is use that concept, but plug in Knative and use Knative to trigger that. Because Knative build process is, as Mark was talking about, we are going to standardize that. So any other technologies, let's fit them into Knative process, right? So that's how I'm going to show it. The other concept is that of a route, right? Knative, in Knative serving, we talked about a route. OpenShift also has routes. So there are some terms that you may get confused when I'm talking about. So I'll say Knative build versus OpenShift build. Knative route versus OpenShift route, because route is a concept that was there in OpenShift from before, and it has been doing certain things that Knative does were already being done with OpenShift routes as well, right? So there is an overlap in terms of terminology. So I'll just qualify those terms when I'm talking, okay? So, by the way, I wrote a playbook so that we can do it fast. Let's look at, first thing was build, right? So let's look at a build template, which is very similar to what Mark was presenting earlier. So build template is a template that is reusable to create multiple builds based on that template, right? Very simple. So we have a set of parameters, and you can, if you are using this template, you can pass the values for these parameters. Like for example, you can pass an image name. You can pass what should be the resultant container image look like, kind of things, right? This template is for creating OpenShift builds. So I'm using build template to create OpenShift builds, and it has a couple of steps, right? These steps are executed in order. How many of you know what init containers are in Kubernetes, right? You know, so basically these are small containers that will come up, do a job, finish, and the next one starts up. Build process uses those init containers. What I did is, if I say, by the way, I'm using OC. Clear this so that you can see it. OC get build templates. So this is one of the things that Mark was talking about, that there are so many command line tools, right? This is an OpenShift command line tool. If not anything, it is short. You don't have to type a lot of letters, right? So I already created the build template. Now let's create a service that also includes a build. So I'll show you what that looks like. What is service? Which part of Knative does service come into play? Knative serving, right? As part of serving, we have a service. So I'm using that kind service, right? And I'm calling it dumpy, name of the service, right? And I'm going to deploy that into a my project namespace. It has a spec. Part of that, there's a configuration. See the build here, and this build is using that template that we created earlier, OpenShift builds, right? And it is actually starting from the source code, which Mark was trying to show, right? And there is a revision as well. Let's note this revision. It is revision. The tag is v1. Okay. And we are passing the parameters that were defined in the template. We are saying, hey, this is going to be using an image stream. This image stream is a concept from OpenShift builds. We are going to be building a Golang image. And when the image gets created, let's name it Dumpy. And the build itself, now this is OpenShift build. When you create an OpenShift build, we are going to name it as Dumpy build. Okay. Now, the steps, the first step in that OpenShift build process, in that build template, will actually create an OpenShift build. The second step will run an OpenShift build. OpenShift build, when it runs in a container. It runs as a pod. Okay. Knative build, which includes these multiple steps that we talked about earlier, those 2 steps were there, right? And a couple of other steps to deal with Git repository, initializing the credentials and all that. All the steps also run as part of a pod. So we are going to see 2 pods. One for Knative build process, the second one which actually runs an OpenShift build. Okay? So here we are talking about combining 2 different things together. We are going to create a service that embeds the build, and when the build is complete and a container gets created, that container will be used. So see this container image name that I'm providing, Dumpy latest. Once this container gets created, we'll be using this container image to create a revision. Right? Remember the term revision that we saw in Knative presentation earlier from Mark? So in Knative serving, you have service, you have configuration, you have revision. Right? We are using all those things. Now let's create this. So I'm going to apply this configuration. And if this doesn't work, you'll get sacrificed. So let's watch the parts that get created, right? You see the first part that got created, right? This one is the Knative build pod. And that Knative build pod is executing multiple init containers. By the time I got in here, it already went from init1 to init2 to init3. In the third step, it actually creates an OpenShift build, which is this one. And the OpenShift build starts running in the 4th step. So right now, the OpenShift build is running. So what you're seeing here, the second part, is the OpenShift build that is running. Okay. So let's give it a minute for the build to get complete. What happens after the build gets complete? It creates a container image. It took the source code, that Golang source code. It ran a build on that. It is going to create a container image. Once that container image is created, it will put that check that into a doc container registry, and it will use that resultant container image and go and start up a new configuration, create a new revision. Right? All the steps are happening with just one configuration file. So you should actually go and deploy the application after the build is complete. So let's wait for that. Now the deployment has started. See this one? This is our actual running application. So the deployment is about to get started. Pod is initializing. But let's go back and see the other components that got created. So we should have a service, right? This service also has a URL. This is coming from the route, right? We have a configuration. We have the revision that is specific to the build that we just did, V1 revision. And then we also have a route. But how does this route, just by creating this URL, how does the traffic come into this cluster, right? That is where OpenShift does some magic. OpenShift has, remember I talked about OpenShift has its own router. So OpenShift creates its own route based on this URL. And if I say OC get route from, oh, one thing I should have shown you. What all things do we run? I mean, when you install Knative, you already have Istio running there, right? Service mesh. So basically, it goes and creates this route automatically, so that the traffic coming in gets in via Istio ingress gateway into the cluster. OpenShift automatically adds that. Now let's say we curl this URL. Why is it taking time? Because the pod has to get activated for the first time, right? So it took time, but next time it should be faster. It's fast, right? First time, it took some time for the pod to get initialized, activated. So now we have a running service. That's the first step. We have a running service, right? We tried build, and we tried the serving component so far. Let's explore a little bit more. Let's get into eventing. So in the world of eventing, we talked about a few components of eventing, right? We talked about event sources. What are event sources? Event sources are the things that capture events from the outside world. Then they'll deliver it to something like a sink. Sink is like a channel where the events get delivered, right? So let's say we have a service, and in order to trigger this service, let's create an event source, right? And that event source, let it start. We'll use a heartbeat kind of a thing, which will keep on generating some events, and let's push that into a channel. And there are different kinds of channels we can create. In our example, I'm going to create a simple in-memory channel, right? So the events, the heartbeats get generated, and they'll be pushed into this channel, an in-memory channel. The third thing we'll do is we'll subscribe the channel to our service that we just created, right? So let's look at those three things. So first thing, this is a channel. It's an in-memory channel. We are calling it test channel. I'm going to apply that. See, apply. So now the channel got created. Then let's look at the event source. So this event source, as I said, it creates a heartbeat, right? It is just making use of a heartbeat image to just generate a heartbeat. So let's look at the pods. So heartbeat got created, event source got created, right? It's still getting initialized. Now let's also do the subscription now. So what do we want to subscribe to? So we have the test channel. So the heartbeat is actually pushing the heartbeats into the sink, which is the test channel that we created earlier. Now we want to subscribe our service, our dumpy service, to this test channel, so that the events that are dropped into this channel are picked up by our dumpy guy, right? Let's do that. So look at the subscription. So we are using the test channel, and we are subscribing our dumpy guy to this test channel. Very simple, right? That is done too. Now, let's look at a cool user interface too. To make it bigger so that you can see it clearer. So we are using a technology called Kiali. This provides the tracing capability, observability on a Istio cluster, and I'm just showing the same exact thing. See this activator that Mark was explaining earlier, part of Knative serving? That's the one that when it sees the load, it goes and starts the pod. So right now it is just starting the pod, so basically there will be some delay between the time it actually happens to when it is actually seen on the screen. There will be 15-second delay. So activator went and started this pod, and now the traffic is coming in from our heartbeat pod, which is the source, to our in-memory channel, and from there it got subscribed to our dumpy service, and it is getting to the dumpy service. Right? So we saw the entire mechanism. Eventing is happening. However, we are seeing things in red here. Red means something is wrong. And there is something wrong really. What is that? And it's an intentional defect that I have in this code. Let's make it bigger. What I did is, this code has status internal server error. It is intentional. Because we also want to see that revision thing, right? We want a different revision and we want to shift the traffic and all that. So we want to introduce a bug intentionally, right? So there is a revision 2 of this guy. Let's see. V2. Where the status will be okay, right? So let's deploy this revision now. So now, see this service, I'm going to update the service, right? The previous service, I'm just going to update it. In this case, we have 2 revisions, right? And I'm saying the rollout % is going to be 0. As of now, I'm just adding a new revision, but not sending any traffic to it yet. So the percentage of traffic that is going to that new version is still 0 at this point, okay? So let's create this. All right. So what should happen? Because we are starting with the source code, it actually start a new build, right? So next build got started. What will it do? It takes the source code, compile it again, create a new container image, push it into a container registry, and when it is ready, it's going to create a new revision, and then that's it, deploy it. But it won't send any traffic to that yet because we didn't update the revision. So let's wait for this to be done. Build is still running. By the way, let's look at the build pod while this is going on. So I'll take one of the build pods and describe it. Remember I said init containers? I added, the build template had 2 steps, right? One was step create a build, and the next step was run the build, right? These are 2 different init containers in that description. So that pod, when it comes up, it runs multiple init containers, 1 for each step. The first step is credential initializer. This I didn't create it, it automatically added it. The second step is git source, who is actually going to git repository and cloning the source code and giving it to our pod. This step is doing it. And then the next step is the steps that I have created, right? So those are all running inside the pod. So when you see the pod running, And when you see those, it's already done actually. So that's why we're not seeing it. We saw that init 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Those 4 pods are related to those 4 init containers. Init 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? Anyway, the build is now complete, and the deployment number 2 is also ready. Right? Let's go back and look at our console. The service dumpy2 guy is ready, but there is no traffic flowing in this direction. The traffic is still all flowing into version 1, right? So now let's do the A/B deployment. Yes, sir. You had a question?
Is it a key nativism to do your build and deployment on a deploy to production, or is it just your demo that is doing the build?
This is not deployed to production. This is still, I mean, think of this as a dev environment. And this is just my example on how I'm doing it all in one step. Yeah, you can separate it out as well. You can do it together or you can separate it out. But it does, I mean, don't expect this to be going all the way to production. And I don't think enterprises at least will not be doing a production rollout with this kind of a thing. You'll do it in multiple CI/CD steps, kind of. Sorry? Oh yeah, that can happen. All right. So now, let's do this. So we'll look at the next version of service, which is going to split the traffic. So let's cat the new version. So here, the only difference is you still have 2 revisions, but the rollout percentage is 50-50, right? Let's apply this change. Change is applied, but there will be some delay by the time we can see that here. So let's give it a minute. All right, try to refresh it and see if it gets any faster. Come on. No, the traffic is already going, but it has to go to Prometheus, and Prometheus has to tell Kiali that, hey, I am seeing a change. Here you go, kind of thing. Oh, there it is. Activator has kicked off, dumpy2 guy, and very soon we'll start seeing it in green, actually. Yes.
We had a first phase there.
Mm-hmm.
You had 2 versions. So it is understood. It will be 50-50.
Correct.
So if you have 3 versions and you say 20, how does it work?
So you want to split across 3 different revisions? I think there is a mechanism to the Mark may know it better. So do we have the mechanism to actually split across 3? This is part of the Knative route itself. Yes. Yeah, it's Knative. It's all Knative. So basically, route is embedded into the serving itself in this case. But if you can also split out that route separately and have it as a separate spec too.
Also, one of the things that we're cleaning up in the data version of the API to make it much more clear how much traffic is going to each revision, what the intent was, and instead of being very ambiguous,
So we can see that the revision 2 is green. It's good, right? There are no errors in that, and we are happy with this, right? Now we want to move all the traffic to revision 2. So I'll apply the 100% thing now. which is, oops, 13. So this is, only dumpy 2 is there, right? So the traffic will only go there. So again, give it a little time and the traffic will only go to this guy. Because there is only one, I mean, rollout percent doesn't have any meaning once you have just only one revision, right? I completely took out revision number 1. So anyway, that was my demo. We can also see the scale out. So let's say we'll delete the subscription. Is it going to this guy yet completely? Slowly getting there. It's turned orange. More traffic getting here.
This is an open source product, right?
Kiali is open source, yes. So Kiali is, it was created by Redhat engineers, but it's done in an open source way, and it is also becoming part of STM. So it's available. So yeah, now all the traffic is going to dumpy2 guy. Now let's remove the subscription. So let's say, oops, okay. Subscription is removed. Let's look at the pods. So we have dumpy2 running right now, and that's, oh, dumpy1 is still getting terminated. In a little while, the dumpy2 pod also will go down because it will automatically scale down to 0. When there is no traffic coming in, it will scale down to 0. Right? So that was like a simple cooked up example that shows all the features top to bottom, right? So that's it I had. Thank you.